Hey everybody, welcome to KCBC. This is your host, Michael Reisinger. Today I have a very special guest, CamFAwesome. He is a motivational speaker, comedian, author, former Olympic level boxer, the winningest boxer in U.S. history, and he is here today on KCBC. So glad to have you here, Cam. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
I'm so excited to have you, man. So I guess we should start the podcast off appropriately. But first, gratitude. What are you grateful for today, man?
Grateful for your energy. Because sometimes you show up places and you get greeted with not great energy. So energy is everything. And even though we don't have the language or the diction to explain energy, it's real.
Yeah, man. For sure. I appreciate that. I was doing the exercise and I have to tell you, I have Becoming Awesome, your new book here, because we don't have video on the podcast yet. But reading this book was a catalyst for me because I was at a point, I think I told you recently, I got back into whole food, plant-based eating. And then I always love meeting a badass vegan or plant-based athlete because, you got guys like yourself, Brendan Brazier, John Joseph, these guys who are doing, triathlons and they're in combat sports, and it's just it's like it doesn't compute for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, it doesn't, and I think it's people, we don't know what we don't know, and we're very comfortable with what we do.
Right.
So a lot of times, if someone's like, "Oh, that's a vegan," like, "Oh, you can't be an athlete if you're vegan," and all of the people who usually tell me that I can't aren't healthy.
Right.
Isn't that funny how that works?
It is. We've talked about that with other guests on the show. Like, I'm not going to take, financial advice from folks who, aren't in a well financial position unless I'm learning from their lessons, right?
Learning what not to do.
Yeah, there's value there. I'm not going to take health advice from somebody who doesn't take care of themselves, right? And so
those be the people who want to give them the most.
Right. Absolutely. And so for you, reading this book, this is a point where I'd go through the chapters and I would my wife sitting on the couch, she's reading a book on the other side of the room. And I'd say, man, Cam's got me thinking about gratitude journaling again, and we've started doing it at the table at breakfast. Cause it's chaos in the morning with the littles and trying to get them to get the discipline and making getting ready for school their problem, it's their problem, right?
Yeah.
They've got to learn that.
And then they have to learn to create solutions to their own problems.
Absolutely. I want to start that early. And part of that too, is that rhythm is starting with gratitude. And this morning they asked me what I was grateful for. And I was like, I'm just glad to be interviewing Cam on the podcast. I didn't even know this was going to exist 6 months ago. And to be sitting here with you, it's just cool, man. It's like a watershed moment for me, in my life. So, with the gratitude position, let me ask you this. How has it been going, talking to people about your book? I know that you've been really active. Your social media, we'll drop all those in the notes, tell people about that. But you've been traveling literally all over the world, all over the country. How's that been going?
That's been going well. So I transitioned out of a boxing career where I was traveling 300 days a year. So I've been traveling on the road since I was 18. And then now I transition into speaking. I'm traveling just as much, but I don't get punched and I don't have to check my weight. So
you don't have to tell the boxing commission either.
Yeah. I don't have to, I'm not on probation anymore. Yeah.
Right.
So it's been a pretty cool career. I didn't even know it was a career. It was something I was doing for free. And then someone asked me what do you make doing that? And I was like, oh, you don't do that for money? And they're like, yeah, you do. It was Devin Henderson. He's a speaker here in the Kansas City area. And he's like, it's a career. And I was like, can we meet for coffee?
Right.
He told me about the National Speakers Association. I joined and I started to focus heavily on building this business.
Man, do you think that kind of started from your comedy tour as well? Because you mentioned that in the book. When you're in a place for boxing, you'd find an open mic night or a club to go in.
Yeah. So I got involved in boxing not to actually become a boxer, but to leverage athlete privilege for a different career. And I wanted back when I was a kid, I wanted to be on the show All That, like Keenan and Kel. That was that's what I thought. So when I won my first national championship, they ask you your height, your weight, your reach. And the last question was, what do you want out of boxing?
Right.
And most people put heavyweight championship or millions of dollars or Olympic medal. I put to be a good role model and have my own TV show. that was what was important to me. That's why I was boxing. And this was 2008 when TV shows were relevant. And since there's been social media and influencers. So basically I wanted to do what I am now since I was a child. I just didn't know what it was called.
Right. What does it mean to become awesome to you?
Personally, what I think it means is there's a lot of people who live a certain way because they want to make their parents happy or make society happy. And like you ask a 4-year-old, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? He's like, I'm a doctor. I want to be a doctor. And he doesn't know what that means, or she doesn't know what that means. She just wants to make her parents happy. And then they go to school, they study real hard, they go to college, they go to doctor school. I know you don't call it doctor school, but they should. And then they graduate and you're like, I'm a doctor. Dad, are you proud? And he's like, not really. I mean, I love you for you. I don't care what you do for a living. And they're like, what? I mean, I dedicated my whole life to become a doctor to make you happy. And there's so many people who are pursuing things in life that don't align with what they truly want. They're just trying to impress other people. And when you do that for so long, you kind of forget what you wanted in the first place. And in 2012, when I got kicked off the Olympic team, I realized that I was pursuing boxing like it was what I wanted. And I was like, well, I didn't even actually want to, I win, I'm good, but that's not what I want to do. I was doing that to become a performer so I can have relevancy and kind of transition over because I didn't understand how else to do it. And when I decided to just double down and go into a different career. So I changed my last name to Awesome. I became Awesome and I decided to pursue what I wanted in life. And even though it meant I still had to box a little bit longer to utilize that athlete privilege, because athlete privilege dissipates faster than your sweat on the jersey in your last game. You're special when you're an athlete. You think about it in school, like someone got in trouble in school, they're not getting suspended. Not if there's a game coming up. You get treated special. As adults, when an athlete, there are gigs that I get. There's opportunities that I have. I date out of my league because I'm an athlete. It's not because I'm charming. And I understood that. And in 2012, I said, I'm going to leverage everything that athlete privilege gives me to build a future for myself for after sports. And I think becoming awesome just means doing what makes you happy, not really caring about the outcome.
And I love that. I also love too how you have been documenting your journey. And it probably has occurred to you, but I don't know if you have somebody tell you from the outside, like when you got in the car accident, and that's like your car is literally nose down in a ditch, and you're like, I'm going to lean into this moment, and I'm going to take this moment. I'm not going to let the moment take me down in that ditch. But you've been documenting this, right? I mean, leaning into going to, speak at comedy clubs. And like when you were becoming a fighter, like I remember reading, you went and you took any fight that you could get, right? And you'd go drive to go fight. But there's been this sort of documenting of, through your videos too, because you run Awesome Talks. I'm sorry I didn't put that in. I forgot to say that in the intro, but that's your company, right? Yeah. How has that been for you to, put yourself out there, and show everybody becoming awesomer and growing?
I do it for myself. I don't even do it for other people. I do it to remind myself that I'm capable. Everything I do I'm my biggest fan. I love me some me. I'm my favorite. Ain't nothing wrong with me. I'll always grow and improve, but I'm perfect the way I am. And I believe in that so wholeheartedly that I put breadcrumbs to remind myself that I'm capable. So I got in a car wreck. It was either I go home, and there's no way for me to go home actually. And I don't even know if I included in the book, but I didn't have enough money to rent the car.
I think it is in there, or it was in the video somewhere. I found a breadcrumb.
Okay.
I found that detail somewhere.
I rented a car for one day. I was on a 51-day trip, and I rented a car for one day because I couldn't turn around, because if I went home, I still wouldn't have a car. So I'm like, I got to rent a car. I got to start booking more gigs while I'm speaking to try to make up for the income of renting a car. And when you rent a car with a debit card, because I didn't believe in credit cards. Well, I believed in them. I know they exist. Right. But if I couldn't afford something, I didn't deserve it, because I see over 90% of Americans are in debt. And all they say is, all you need to do, if someone ever starts with all you need to do, they're lying to you. All you need to do is pay it off monthly. Life doesn't work like that. So I just never got a credit card because I didn't want to put myself in a hole I couldn't dig myself out of.
Right.
So a lot of things that I did, I took the more difficult route because I saw the way other people fail and I didn't want to go down that route.
That's powerful, right? I mean, reverse engineering failure. You can also do that with success as well.
Yeah.
I know you've talked about the difference between failure and success and making success inevitable. How do you make success inevitable?
Ooh, it's simpler than anyone would have thought.
It's not an all you need to do, right? It's just simpler.
Yeah, it's simpler. It's not complicated. It's not easy. It's just simple.
Yeah.
So your reticular activating system, your RAS, your brain takes in billions of bits of information every moment, but your unconscious mind can't give all of that information. Your conscious mind, it's too much to process. So out of the billions of bits of information, the RAS filters out and gets about 50 bits of information that your brain thinks is relevant to you in that moment. So every moment you get 50 bits of information out of billions of bits. So to show how this works is you go shopping for a yellow car all weekend. You don't buy one, but then you start seeing yellow cars everywhere. That's ever happened to you, that's your RAS at work. The second you told your brain, hey, I'm looking for a yellow car, your brain sees all of the cars there is, or they are, but it only shows you the ones that are relevant to you.
Right.
It's why whichever car you drive happens to be the most popular car on the road.
Right.
Your brain can see all the cars, but it's only looking for what's relevant to you. What you seek is what you find. What are you seeking? The reason why I do my gratitude practice in the morning is your brain is more receptive to information first thing in the morning. So I write a list of 10 things I'm grateful for every morning. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to write this on my list, our conversation. Every day I find 10 things to be grateful for. And the second you wake up every morning looking for things to be grateful for, just like the yellow car, the second you're looking for it, your brain's like, oh, there's something to be grateful for. There's something to be grateful for. And you start to find all the gratitude. And the kind of overall message of the book is if you can fail without being discouraged, success becomes inevitable.
Right.
It's not about failure. Failure is how you learn. Failure is part of the process. It's being discouraged because we don't quit when we fail. We quit when we get discouraged.
Right.
A lot of people don't start because they're discouraged before they even start. So I put a lot of work into building my reality into one that I want to exist in. I dance in the ring. I wear a cape. I changed my last name to Awesome. I don't take anything seriously in life because if I'm less overwhelmed and more happy, I'm less likely to quit. So when I totaled that car on the side of the road, if I would have got out and been pouty and upset, I got out and said, the best thing that's ever happened to me has been after terrible things.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Gosh,
to even push it further.
Yeah. Hit me.
So if I were to say, I'm not capable, my brain will sift through the billions of bits of information, ignoring all the reasons why I am capable, and find anything to agree with what I think already. It's confirmation bias. So if I say I'm not capable, my brain will just ignore all the reasons why I'm capable and show me why I'm not. So when I told my car, I said, the best thing that's ever happened to me has been after terrible things. My brain will work to make that true. There's so many people who think lowly of themselves, who think down on themselves and think they're not capable, and their brain will confirm that. So I changed my last name to Awesome because I love me some me.
Man, it's so great. I love too, like how you mentioned having fun too. And I remember there was a match you did where you came out riding piggyback to Metallica of Wolf and Man. Part of the reason why I'm wearing my Metallica shirt today, man. You know, and it was like almost like you're playing a game like the floor is lava and I'm not going to touch the floor on the way to the boxing ring. That's what I saw. Like, having fun on the way there. But I mean, I can't tell you, too, in my own journey, like, you know, when I was getting more contact with helpful entrepreneurs than I was willing hiring managers, you know, when I got laid off, it was like, man, I'm going to lean in with these folks here because they're embracing the hard, right? And they're telling me I can do it. And, you know, I've got to believe, and it keeps coming back to belief. And the way you articulated that too with the RAS, that is so true, man. And I see what you're doing too. Like you're speaking at schools, like you've got a speaking engagement almost every week. You're working on things like you're always doing something. And it's like, I can tell you're looking for that stuff. Yeah. And so it's finding you too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It's it's a lifestyle. It's not like a diet. It's like something you have to, because diet is like what you consume. I'm very big on what I consume. I stopped listening to some of my favorite rap music because it's not giving me the message that I like.
Can you name some examples?
Every Lil Wayne mixtape.
Man,
I love
you were
Weezy.
a huge Lil Wayne fan.
But I realize I have to stop doing that. So I have a friend, love her to death, right? She loves true crime stuff.
Oh, yeah.
She listens to true crime all day. She listens to the podcast at work all day. She comes home and she watches murder mysteries in the evening. So she listens to people being murdered all day. She watches people get murdered in the evening, and she dreams about people getting murdered all night. You'll never guess this about my friend, but she has anxiety. I wonder why. It's like what you consume creates your reality. So I've been very conscious of, like, I don't watch the news. I'm completely uninformed. I'm ignorant, and I love it.
I love it too.
And when it comes to politics, why are you watching the news for politics? You're just looking to confirm your opinion already. You're not looking to change who you're voting for. So just vote, shut up, and keep it moving. You don't even need to share your political opinion. Your one vote doesn't create more votes. Just vote and shut up and keep it moving. I learned the power of minding my business.
Yeah.
You got 100% bandwidth in your head. You know, some of your bandwidth goes to your kids, some is your wife and your honey-do list. And the little bit of bandwidth you have left, a lot of us are worried about gossip, other people's stuff. We're listening to podcasts about other people's business. We're watching politics of people arguing with each other. Nothing that has anything to do with us. And I don't know anyone who's so smart and so successful that they don't need all the bandwidth in their brain.
Right.
And so I'm very conscious of the things that I care about. And if I don't care about something, you won't hear me mention it because I genuinely do not give a fuck.
Man, I love that about consuming, because we consume with our eyes, we consume with our minds, with our mouths. You know, I know too, like with your vegan journey, you know, you lost a bet. And so then you got on a 20-day diet. That's very similar to the path I had. I didn't lose a bet, but I was like, this is the one thing that I haven't tried. And, you know, I need to see if my body's going to respond to it well. And I can't believe how well it worked for me to put that stuff. What's that journey been like? I know you travel a lot. Like, how do you make sure you're consuming things? I mean, when I was in a band, it was like we could barely find bananas at gas stations. Yeah. Man, it's really hard to stay healthy.
It's a struggle.
So how do you manage that?
I've always had a negative relationship with food. I lack moderation. I don't do anything unless I do it 100%. I don't even drink anymore because we can't moderate things, can we? But with food, you have to eat food every day. So becoming vegan, one of the benefits of it was it limited my options. So if I ate meat and I could just drive through a McDonald's drive-through only today, I don't make it a habit. I would do that twice a day for the rest of my life. I don't know how to do something a little bit. If something's convenient, I'm definitely going to do it. So I decided to take the route of becoming vegan and limiting myself. And there's a lot of other benefits why I do it, but it's not for everyone. I don't suggest everyone do it. I do suggest everyone try it. Try different diets to see what your body reacts to the best. I learned that obesity isn't genetic, it's cultural. Of course, you look like your dad because you eat the same crap he eats. But if you went somewhere else and ate something different, you wouldn't look like him. And I realized how important it is. Like, I lost 20 pounds and I saw a video of someone like giving someone a 20-pound weight and said, okay, now you carry this around for the rest of your life. And it's like, oh, that just strains you. And now that I put some priority on my health and my fitness, which as an athlete I did, but when I was stopped boxing, I was living in the van for a while. It was hard to just living on the road, going to Chipotle every day.
Yeah.
I was sponsored by Chipotle. I ate free Chipotle for 3 years.
Wow.
Unlimited, bro. Unlimited.
Whoa, that's unreal.
If I showed up to your house, I was showing up with like 8 orders of Chipotle.
Is this pre-Sofritas? Because when they added Sofritas, that's when I was like really pumped.
No, that wasn't even pre-Sofritas. It was, I took advantage of that
just
program.
Extra beans.
Guac, everyone gets guac.
Yeah.
My house was filled with Nantucket nectars. It gave me everything free but alcohol.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but that also blew me up. And when I was still eating like an athlete without working out like one. Mm. And every so often you got to check yourself. Oh, also to just echo something on that belief part. Yeah. And I don't think I mentioned in the book, what we're told during our formative years as children is stuck inside of us. Yeah. So if your parents, like, you don't have to, you just have to be fertile to be a parent. You don't have to be a good person. So there's a lot of parents out there who might be good people, but they're terrible parents. And they told their kids things thinking they were helping, like, oh, you're fat, or you're not as smart as you need to be, trying to motivate them to work harder. And now that's stuck in someone's head, whether they think they're fat, or they're not attractive enough, or they're not smart enough, or they're not good enough, or they're just not enough. And if that's told to you so much, you start telling it to yourself. And I just want people to know, like, of course, it doesn't happen overnight, but start to change your internal dialogue. In 2012, when I changed my last name to Awesome, it was to help me change my internal dialogue. How do you speak to yourself? You go grocery shopping, you bring all your groceries up to the 4th floor of the apartment, you get put on the counter, you sit down, you go to look at your phone, and you realize you left it in the car. What do you say? Oh, that's out. We're forgetful. Let's go down and get that phone. No, of course not. You're like, oh, you idiot. What are we doing? You're stupid. You can't believe I forgot my phone. You're so stupid. And it's like, that's the way we talk to ourselves, and we think that's normal. I stopped talking to myself like that. And some people, it rubs the wrong way that I changed my last name to Awesome, or I think highly of myself, but I don't need them to like me. I like myself enough.
Oh, like, I remember the judge asked you if you were sure, right? You wrote about that. That whole thing about the agreements that you're talking about, the agreements with those soundtracks that play in our head, I call them deeply held beliefs, and I capitalize LIE in beliefs. Because, we always talk about that, right? Like, if you're trying to make, I say you and I, folks like you and I, we are always talking about this stuff because this is what we care about. And I know it comes from a deep place. Like, I want other people to look inside themselves and see how awesome they are. Yeah. Like, see them how awesome they are. Because you know this, right? Like, no one's ever going to be as hard on you as you are. Yeah. And I want people to understand that. But, deeply held beliefs motivate, I would say, everything we do. I don't know that we can escape or don't exactly, right? So if you don't like the results that you're getting from your deeply held lies or whatever, it's like changing that. What did that work look like for you? I mean, you talk about the 1 + 2 + 3, making new equations, looking at new things, but like, what would you say to somebody out there that maybe they're listening to this, maybe they're crying in their car while they're listening to this? Yeah.
Like, first of all,
how do you?
Tears are like a little mini Xanax. Cry as much as you can. That's why I don't hold back tears. When I cry, I cry. I purposely didn't talk about any tears in the book because goals don't care about your feelings. Yeah. And if you can fail without being discouraged, success becomes inevitable. Being discouraged, that's a feeling. Your feelings don't matter when it comes to the goal. What was the question again?
It was what would you say to somebody who's trying to do that deep work, or they know they're at the end of the rope?
I would say, be conscious of your inner dialogue. No one thinks about you more than you. Like, you have children.
Yes,
you have
sir.
2. You think about you more than you think about them.
I do. You checked me. When I read that, I was like, he's right.
So who else is supposed to be thinking about you? Like, it's just you. And of course you think about your children, but not as much as you think about you. And they think about them more than they think about you, because we are egocentric people. And I don't think egos are a bad thing. Ego is, by definition, it's your sense of belief in yourself. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So work on your internal dialogue and work on your RAS. What are you surrounding yourself with? Who do you follow online? If you're following a bunch of things, if the group chats that you're in, because we all got some group chats, just filled with negativity and throwing shade and terrible memes and just saying the worst possible things. I got rid of all of them except for one. I have one group chat that's called We Ain't Shit. that I just keep in there because it's that fun. But
that's awesome.
I had to remove myself from a lot of these groups. I had to stop. The Joe Budden podcast was one of my favorite podcasts because he's my favorite rapper. Back in the day, I mentioned him in the book. Yeah. I idolize him. He was talking about, in 2003, he was doing mixtapes, and I'd buy his mixtapes for like $5. And before every song starts, it's like, visit JoeButtonTV.com. And I used to be like, yo, it's 2002. No one cares about your videos, bro. Just rap. And all yours, JoeButtonTV.com. And he has been archiving his videos since 2002. During the pandemic, podcast got big, his archive blew up. And it's like, he looked like overnight success, but I've been listening to him talk about this since 2002. So who are you surrounding yourself with? So I talk about the 5 people you surround yourself with in life. I think the formula should be whatever your goal is in boxing. The number 1 person out of the 5 was Muhammad Ali. That's the pinnacle. That's someone so big, so out of your realm. That's what you need to shoot your goal for. The number 2 person on this list is someone a little more attainable than that, but someone still further ahead than you. So to me, that was whichever boxer was number 1 during that time, or the best boxer I could find. That was a person I was trying to get better than. The number 3 person is someone who's just as good or just as experienced as you are. Be friends with that person. Don't see them as competition, but you are competing against them. Never let that person get better than you, ever. But give them all the tools possible to become better than you, because it's going to push you harder. And their job is to never let you become better than them. And they support you as you grow because they're trying to challenge themselves as well. That's the most important person. That's the person you're competitive with.
You said steel sharpens steel.
Steel sharpens steel. Yep.
Yeah.
Number 4 person is someone who's not as good as you are, but is just as hungry as you are. They're just less experienced than you. They're going to get to where you're at, and you need to give them everything possible to get to where you are. But your goal is to never let them get better than you, but give them all the tools to be. And finally, number 5th person, the most important one out of them all, it's you. Why would any of those 4 people want to spend time with you if you don't want to spend time with yourself? I started to check myself because I speak on this and I realized, I run with music. I drive, listen to podcasts. I don't like being by myself. And I'm like, okay, nope. Now I got to sit in my discomfort. I've got to learn to spend time with me again. When I was in the van, I had no other choice. It was lonely.
So to make the connection there, you were listening to music. Was it like to distract yourself from you?
I was distracting myself from
saying,
me.
Right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I was distracting myself from me.
I've seen me do it.
Just you're sitting there in line. Remember before cell phones, you just wait in line at a grocery store?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe
with your head up, because if you looked down, you looked like something was wrong.
Yeah. You're just looking at your shoes, and you might say, "Hey, great weather, huh?" Yeah. And those small interactions, those mic interactions, that's mini community connections, and that's so important. We lost that, so now I'm back, putting my phone away, talking to strangers as much as I possibly can, just to make connections with people. So build a community. Be conscious of the things you're taking in. Whether it's your own thoughts, social media. Social media is a big one. About 20,000 people follow me on IG. I follow maybe 150 people. And I love more than 150 people, but it's overwhelming. And I had a friend reach out to me recently. He's like, "Hey man, I just noticed you unfollowed me on social media." I did it like 2 years ago. But I was going through something and I feel like I was overwhelmed, and I just did a full reset. I dropped it down to about 10 people because there's some accounts that I can't follow because I've had some people that died and I still want to follow them. And if I unfollow them, they won't accept me because they decided to die. So
right.
I let my account get down to almost nothing, and I rebuilt, and I only followed people I was conscious about. Another thing I did is I follow hashtags. A lot of people don't know you can do this. Type in a hashtag. One of the hashtags I follow is hip mobility, because I'm trying to be hot at 80. And by hot, I just mean the ability to walk. I'm trying to work for longevity. So I'm trying to do more stretching exercises, and I don't always remember to stretch, but if I open up Instagram and I see the hashtag, this person's stretching, this is what I need to do. It's filling myself with what I need. Another thing I follow is hashtag dogs wearing people clothes.
I was going to ask if it was something about puppies or something, because you talk about how you'll reprogram yourself. Yeah. You got to catch up, so you start liking it. Yeah. Dogs that wear people clothes.
Yeah, dogs that wear people clothes, because I open up Instagram and it's like a golden doodle holding a briefcase, and I'm like, that makes me happy. Why wouldn't you purposely insert things in your life that make you happy? But some people open that up and they're like, bombing in Gaza. Cool. Do you know anything? So you knowing that, can you do anything about it?
Not one thing.
You can just feel bad.
Not one thing.
So I don't need to know about it. Like and you might, people just like to pick certain things. Like, you really need to care. You can't care about everything. First you need to do is care about yourself. If you're not in a mental space to help other people, you can't help yourself. So first work on you. So I'm big on the things I follow. If you open up your Explorer page on Instagram, look at the images that are there. That's who you are. You can say what you want. That is who you are. You can lie to anybody you want, but when you open that, you get to see what you search. You get to see what your interests are. And you might just see it's a bunch of big booty Instagram models. Well, that's what you like. It might be motivational quotes. It might be fashion stuff. It might be car crash videos. It might be Waffle House fights. But that's what you are. So when you open up your phone and you're just trying to escape, you escape into the most evil, destructive stuff. So I suggest people open up your Instagram right now and take a look at what's there. Is that who you are? Is that who you want to be? So when I find myself in an algorithm that I don't love, I open up, I call it a puppy reset. I search golden retriever puppies and I just like and comment on hundreds of them. Like I just spend 15, 20 minutes just liking as many of them as I can. And then my ads are nothing but cute puppies, occasionally dog food, but no violence, no death, no destruction. Sometimes Instagram models, they just keep popping up. I don't know. That one doesn't count.
Well, yeah, Instagram knows you're a male.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're an athlete, right?
Yeah. Some of these hip mobility videos be, yo.
You know, what's funny, because like, I guess like your life expectancy drops when you get to a certain age, and a lot of it's because of fall risk. Guess what? Hip mobility balance. But like, see, that's something too. When you say that, I feel like what I hope is when people are listening to that is new information to them, that there is a way out of this, or a way to weaponize it for your good.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've seen that too. I've seen that with myself. And, you know, is what, because I used to be anti-social media and I was off of it for 6 years. I lost a lot of relationships, especially like moving across the nation with it. But I had this realization that I needed, like, if it's free, you're the product.
Yes.
Right? And if it's not serving me, I'm serving it. And I hate to make everything a binary equation, but sometimes you have to get like spiritually violent, I call it.
I like that.
About that stuff. Yeah, use it, dude. Yeah. I love it, because that's how I've made every major change in my life, has been with mental violence, spiritual violence, and in the case of like, you know, martial arts and stuff, it's like, you know, violence in a controlled you know, place. But you know, people listening, like, it's like you can change your inner dialogue, and it can start with where you spend your time, you know. And what I noticed too on Instagram is you can hover over a picture and you can say not interested, and that'll make it disappear. And you know what, it actually works.
Yeah because it's a product. They're trying to get you as addicted as possible. I remember like when I first started my KCBC account, it was funny. All I was getting was like Nigerian weddings, like videos, and like politicians and stuff. And like, I didn't like anything for like 3 months, and Instagram assumed that I was interested in these things. And I learned so much from like not engaging. And so like, that's another thing, like a little experiment people can do is, you know, it's literally, I know it's kind of overused, but it's like a life hack, right? Yeah.
Sorry, what did you have something?
Oh, I was just going to say, so the idea of making the change, when I'm not perfect by any means. The book is just all the stuff that I personally worked on. There's a lot more. There'd be an encyclopedia of stuff for all the stuff I'm going to learn. So I'm not perfect as yet. I'm working towards it. It doesn't happen overnight, but nothing's going to change until you do. I would tell someone, hey, stop watching the murder. You're anxious. You deal with anxiety. Stop watching murder podcast. Oh, but I like those.
Get off energy drinks.
Yeah. Oh, but I like those, and it's like
I need it.
I need it. Like, oh, I have problems sleeping. Well, how about you stop drinking coffee? Oh, but I need my coffee. You feel like you do, but you're addicted to your coffee. And if you were to just not drink it for about 2 weeks, those 2 weeks are going to suck. But after that, you're going to start to get sleep back. And when you sleep well, the rest of your day is going to feel refreshed.
Yeah, man. Well, you'll hear that too. You know, you'll see people get triggered, like, especially when you talk about being on a plant-based diet or vegan, right?
Yeah.
I could never do that. Good thing it's not you who's doing it then.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's doing it.
Yeah.
I'm sharing something I'm trying right now.
Yeah. I had a...
Hit me, man. I was going to ask you for war story.
I had a, let's call her an overweight lady.
Sure.
Smoking a cigarette at a bar. Overheard that I was vegan and started to tell me about my essential amino acids or something like that. Like, and I don't know. And the thing is, if I'm being honest, I didn't even know what it was, but I was like, I know you don't know. And obviously I think I'm doing all right. So
was she able to list any?
No. She just needed to share why meat was so good.
Right.
But I'm like, I'm not averse to death, by the way. Like, I do understand, like, I'm for hunting. I'm vegan. I wouldn't eat it, but I'm for hunting. I do understand animal control population. If we don't control the deer, they'll just be running the streets. I hit 2 deers in my life. So I do understand that, but the farm factory, because I'm big on energy, these animals live in confined spaces. People don't want to hear it, but you live in confined spaces. They live in their own shit, and they're pumped with hormones and drugs. And right before they die, they're pulled into a room, fighting, screaming for their lives, and then they get murdered. Now, that was the last energy in that being.
That's right.
Is that screaming energy the energy you want to put into your body? Not so much for me. So I'm not a big fan of factory farming. And the reason why I remain vegan is to show people you don't have to indulge. Now, I have the resources to eat deer or go hunting. I have the income to do that. Not everyone does. So I want to be a testament to show that you can do it by just eating plants.
Right. Man. I love how, so far we've been talking about, controlling, basically ourselves and what comes into us and what we consume. Have you seen any stories or testimonials of people who have approached you and said, man, I'm so glad that you said that, in the book or on that podcast or on that documentary, and they've given that testimony to you? Have you had that honor?
I would give you one further. My favorite part about speaking, I get done, I'll speak to, recently I spoke to 1,200 students at a full talk. It was not really nice school. It was a big auditorium of students. And after, I get hundreds of Instagram messages from students. Of course, when I ask at the end of it, I'm like, any questions? Nothing, because this generation does not talk in real life. But they will all add me on social media and they'll send me a message. Thank you for sharing this. And they start sharing what's going on in their life. Granted, I can't open up these messages. They go to my message request because you open it up, talking to minors. That's right. But I love reading those messages. And I get done with a gig and I make sure I don't open any of them up until the end of the night. And then I get to my hotel room and I just like to consciously just read the message and think where I was when I was that age. That's the cool. And of course, other people tell me thank me and all that, but the middle schoolers, because if you just move them slightly 1 degree over the course of their life, that 1 degree is going to change them so much. Adults are a little harder to change, but students they're moldable.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, the trajectory again, and you mentioned that somehow on the path, the trajectory of your life, just 1 degree, over the course of, 40 years. I mean, I think one of the things that I remember was you talking about gratitude. Like if you have your kids start it and they're 4 years old, you say, start with 4 years, four things you're grateful for. And when you turn 5, you're going to start doing 5. And when you're 6, you're 6. And then when you're 10, you're going to do 10 things. And, that's trajectory, right? I know the bullying subject comes up, mental health comes up. What about, do you ever meet adults who are currently being bullied or they're going through some type of, psychological warfare in the workplace or somewhere in their community? What do you think some of the challenges are, or how do you help people with that kind of thing? Sorry, that was 5 questions.
No,
I'm used to that. I do that often.
My brain processes it. So we're good. Yeah. So the adults who are dealing with bullying, for lack of a better word, bullying, I think a lot of it is people are trying to fit in places they don't belong. Social media is a party. You don't need to be at the party all the time. You don't need to be hanging out. So at work, go to work. You don't have to be around the cool. You don't have to hang around those people. And if you start restricting your ability to people, it becomes worth a little more. If you're always around, they don't really.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
I felt famous amongst my friends, and I just say famous is a funny word, but I travel so much, so I would win a tournament and I would come back to Kansas City for 3 days before I'm gone for another 2 months. And those 3 days, no matter who I reach out to, they cancel their plans, they find babysitters, they make it work to see me because my presence is worth something because I'm not around that much. And I saw that as a tool. If you're around too much, people don't appreciate you as much. Don't give people the benefit of your presence if they're not going to appreciate it. So where are you spending your time? And are you spending your time with people that actually value you? Because if it's the people who are being mean to you or bullying you as an adult, I know a lot of women who are just catty and they do these passive aggressive comments. They're Midwest nice. And I'm like, you don't have to spend time with those people. There's so many, there's 9 billion people. You can't you don't have the time to give everyone 2 chances. You shouldn't give everyone 1.
Right.
So I'm big on who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, that goes back to like your 5 people in your life too, and being mindful about that, and the ecosystem too. I think, about some of the ecosystems that you found yourself in, like, the gym, I think in Florida, that was the first gym you trained at, right?
Oh,
or no, you were in New York.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But, you explain that too, why you made certain moves and why you decided to stay. I know you're not home a whole lot here in Kansas City, but who is your ecosystem here? Or like, where do you go to train? How do you network here?
Ecosystem, one of the people, so Matt Mays, the guy I met when I was 16, when I moved to Kansas City, he dropped out of college, quit his job, and moved out here with me because he said, like, you don't know anyone in Kansas City and you shouldn't move somewhere where you don't know anyone. I'm like, bro, you don't know anyone. He's like, I know you. And we bought houses 4 miles away from each other. We've been friends since we were 16. It's like that person's always going to be in my top 5. As a business, I realized I have to. So I shared my boxing top 5, but my business top 5 looks a little different because I think you should do this with everything you're in.
Oh man, this is like the Matrix red pill moment with me, man. I was like, oh, you were talking about the 5 for that context. Okay,
yeah.
So 5 for business.
5 for business. Man. Number 1 is Jay-Z. Jay-Z is my number 1. Billionaire. He started in one industry. So he made his money illegally. Then he got to a level and he made sure he did everything clean, went straight laced, started a record label, found success in that, took the money from the record label. Instead of buying rims, he rapped about growing up, wearing button ups, getting fancier. He used that money to start a clothing line. He then started investing in businesses, alcohol. He owns the Nets, a partial owner of the Nets.
I didn't know that.
That's my number 1 business guy. Duce, the alcohol he's always rapping about. He's been rapping about it for years, but he didn't tell anyone he owns it. He used to rap about Cristal, and then Cristal says Cristal didn't like that. Gangster rappers were flaunting their brand. It was lowering their value. So he started his own, didn't tell anyone, and everyone's like, I'm drinking what Jay-Z's rapping about. But of course, if he would have said, drink my alcohol, it's mine, they wouldn't have done it, right?
Right.
So Jay-Z's my number 1 on that list. I actually released my book on December 4th, Jay-Z's birthday. Every year, December 4th, that's when I start my New Year's. Because most people throw away 10% of their year. Come Thanksgiving, they throw away all their fitness goals and everything because they're going to start again on January 1st. You telling me if I just start earlier, I get 10% more work done a year than everyone else? So December 4th, I start all my goals. By January 1st, I'm on a roll. Most people are waking up hungover. I've already started. I'm 3 weeks in. So Jay-Z's my number 1. My number 2 person, I lacked in Kansas City. I struggled to find a mentor that was out of my reach. That was still in my reach, for lack of a better term. So somebody that I have to spend time with. So I went down to Dallas and I was meeting with a buddy named Nate. He's a boxing coach. And I was talking about things I'm doing in business and what I plan on doing. And he's just stopped me and said, hey, you're talking about what you're going to do. What have you done? First of all, no one talks to me like that. No, that was the first thing I was like, first of all, no one talks to me like this. I need someone to talk to me like this. I need someone to call me out on my shit. And he said that to me and it made me so at first I was taken aback and I was like, oh, this is accountability. And it became so unfamiliar to me because I coach myself in boxing. I did everything on my own. And it could be argued that I could have gotten further doing things someone else's way, but I much rather fail my own way than succeed someone else's. That was in boxing. Business is different. So he called me out and he's a very successful business owner. So I said, oh, I need to spend as much time as Nate as possible. Then I have another guy, Tony Mack. He's a boxer down in Dallas. He also had a detached retina when he was a professional fighter and could never box again and went just balls deep into owning a gym. He opened up 2 gyms and I saw him 2009. I would be sleeping on his couch in Dallas. I'd go down there to train and he's like starting this gym and it's like just a small boxing ring in the corner of someone else's gym. And it was not a big deal at all and wasn't very professional. And then like by 2011, he moved locations. So it got a little bit better. And now it's 2024 and Tony doesn't show up to the gym. I go down to Dallas.
Folks who are running it.
Yeah, folks who's running. He built a team. And I don't have a team. And I saw how, because he talked to me about certain things and he said that like one of the guys on his team was one of the guys who works for him had an idea, and Tony's like, I let him do it. I was like, do you think it's going to work? He's like, doesn't matter. He needs to see if it's going to work or not on his own. And I was like, oh, I would never, I'm so controlling that I would never do that. And so Tony's my number 3 person. He's the person I'm in competition with. And when I went down there with Tony, he gave me a book. He says, read this book. It's going to help you so much. He gave me another book about block scheduling. And it's like, he's giving me the resources to be better than him. And he will never let me be better than him. And I'm doing the same to him. I want to push him as much as I can. So, and I'm lacking on because I'm planning to move down to Dallas just to be around Nate and Tony.
Okay.
Jay-Z, I'm not going to be around. Not yet.
Not yet.
But I'm very conscious of those 5 people. And I'm of course the 5th. The 4th person I'm still looking for. When I get down to Dallas, I want to find somebody that I can mentor, because I realize you learn so much by teaching other people. It's the most selfish thing you can do, is helping other people, because it benefits you so much.
Man. Well, now you got me thinking about what's next. I mean, you talked about Dallas. What does that look like, building a team? It sounds like that's something that you want to do. But like, I mean, are you cool with showing your hand a bit?
Yeah. I'm an open book, because what I've done, most of it doesn't work out. The whole book is about things that didn't work out. I like to share what doesn't work so you can not do it. And if you find out something I'm doing, you're like, hey, that's not gonna work, let me know. I might not take your advice, but it's good to know. Yeah. Right. So building a team. So I have I'm working with somebody who helps me book gigs, so she does my invoicing and stuff. And I want to start talking to athletes about building a future for themselves for after sports. 2012, when I got kicked off the Olympic team, I had no degree, I had no certifications, I had no skills.
Yeah, man.
And I was just like, okay, I knew I had to go back to boxing because I already invested so much in it. And I don't even love boxing. It's just something that I was good at. So I had to return to boxing because I had no other option. So I said, I'm going to change my last name to Awesome. I'm going to brand myself. I'm going to market myself. I'm going to build myself as a brand and a business. And I want to teach athletes how to do that as well. Because let's say you're a killer wrestler. You got a scholarship. Great. What do you do when you retire? When you're done with college, what do you do with wrestling? You become a coach for
wrestlers.
And here's the thing, it doesn't pay much. Okay. And eventually your wife's going to say, hey, you have kids at home. You want to spend time with the kids, or do you want to go coach wrestling for $16 an hour?
Right.
So then you kind of have to make a decision, something that you're passionate about, you love, or you can create an entire brand around what you're doing, whether it's mentoring wrestlers, or you can get creative. You don't have to be a speaker. You don't have to do stand-up comedy. These are just 2 things I decided to do. But as an athlete, the greatest thing is you know how to do hard shit. You wake up in the morning and go running before you go to work.
Forget eating the frog. Like you're like, give me the bigger thing. Yeah. That's your whole life. So if every morning you wake up and run 4 miles or train for 2 hours before you go to work, and now your sport is done and all you have to do is go to work. Do you know how easy work becomes? Everything becomes easier when you do difficult things. How much difficult things are you doing? Because I talk about in the book, the equation 1 + 2 = 3. 2 is the hard work, right? Right.
That's a subjective term. Someone sits in front of a computer, because Forbes released something that said the average employee only works 18% of their workday. Right. Of productivity. Right. So you sit in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. You're on TikTok for most of it and one headphone in your left ear, right? And then you come home from work and you have a drink and you smoke a little weed. Why? Because you had a hard day at work. Meanwhile, there's a lady in Africa who's like mining cobalt with a baby strapped to her back for 18 hours a day. She also thinks she works hard. Which one of you are right? Right. America is so great that we're lazy and fat.
Dude, we've got most of our problems, and this is not discounting anybody else's stuff, because what's hard for people is hard for people. Yeah. We have so many first world problems. And do you ever realize that too? You're having a conversation like, man, I'm complaining about something that is a product of where I live, what I've done up to this point. Yeah. And this is something that, first world problems.
First of all, I see, you know how soft I am? I can't sleep without air conditioning, bro. Like, my parents are immigrants.
Hey,
they struggled
too.
Yeah, my parents struggled. Like we're in a place. What would it look like if we lived in a utopia, would it be that more people died from obesity than starvation? Would it be that our level of poverty is over $12,000 a year? A lot of countries, their level of poverty is $400 a year. A lot of places, they're not even dirty. They just don't have a sanitation system. We do. And then we complain, I got to separate recycling. And it's so great. Our problems are so great. And I remind myself of that all the time. I've been to over 30 countries. And when you go to these countries, you don't go to the nice parts.
Right.
When I went to the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Bro.
You were just out there too.
Yeah. I went to a resort for the first time. Don't like it. Wasn't for me. It was like a desensitized Disney. It was like everyone was just, it was like we were in America. Well, granted, everyone was Canadian. So it was like, I was in a warm Canada. And it was like none of the culture, none of the people, just employees. And I'm like, and it's weird because I'm on a vacation having the time of my life. And there's someone who is working their butt off. I'm like, I like staying in hostels. Because then there's just random people who just you're in a hostel for 3 nights. And if you decide you want to leave early, it doesn't cost anything. And I went to Costa Rica last year and I was staying in a hostel. I met a cool group of people and I was like, you guys leaving tomorrow? They're like, yeah, we're going so-and-so, Nosada. And I was like, cool, I'll go with you guys. And I just checked out and I went with them and hung out with them for a few days. And then a few of them left. And now we follow each other on Instagram. And now I have friends all over the world. It's like, that's what I like experiencing. But when I go to these other countries, I realize how good I have it.
Right. You know, when we're talking about with what you want to do next and helping athletes develop the next thing. And I just think about it. I mean, I know like from a little bit from her personal experience, not as an athlete, but as a musician, I was learning how to play guitar when I was 13. Right out of high school, I dropped out of college. I got in a band and toured, and that became my whole world. Right? Is like I'm good at picking like a caveman on an electric guitar and drop B and playing metal stuff. And people would ask me, "Well, what do you really want to do when you grow up?" And I go, "Well, I'm going to do this," you know. And I feel like too, I've seen that like with athletes when you watch their stories, and because of the proliferation of podcasts, you can hear these after actions. But you know, what's your process like if you get with an athlete? You know, what sort of thought process do you have to start getting them to build something for what's after?
First, you have to tackle telling them that their career is going to end someday. Because imagine like LeBron James has been the man since he was 13. Imagine at 17, after like telling him, hey, you might not make it to the NBA. Have a backup plan. Now, you can't tell LeBron James that. And also, everyone thinks they're LeBron James. So I talked to them like, okay, let's say you do your sport until the age of 40. You made money. Let's say you made some good money. So your cost of living has increased because you take vacations, you have kids, they're in private school. Now you're 41. Let's say you have a savings. Now you're 44. You haven't worked this level for 3 years. What are you doing with your life? How do you see that looking? Because you can't go back to being a normal person. I see so many depressed athletes because what they did was they identified as an athlete. I made sure my entire career I never identified as an athlete.
Right.
Because if that's all who you are and your sport is over, you're stuck. And you'll just be drunk at Applebee's at 51 talking about that touchdown you scored in high school.
Man, having that conversation that rocks people. And when I talk to you, I get this impression that you've always known like boxing wasn't going to be the main thing. Because you said like from an early age, like you wanted to, you know, speak in front of groups. You wanted to have a TV show at one point. I think you talked about you'd picture yourself next to Oprah being on the stage.
Yeah, I had a plan actually. I was going to wear wheelies on Oprah. I thought I was going to go to the Olympics and then Oprah's going to be like, hey, you should come on my show. And I'd be like, I guess I will. I'll make time. And then Tom Cruise danced on her couch. I was going to have Heelys. They're going to make size 15 Heelys. I was going to order them and I was going to slide on her stage. I also had aspirations of dancing with Ellen, but neither of those shows exist anymore. So
that's right. You know, my wife, she went on Ellen back when Steve Carell did Get Smart and she got a Blu-ray player. You remember how she used to do 12 Days of Christmas?
Yeah.
It's so random. That was like a big thing for her and her friends. Same group of friends, they went and saw Prince at the Forum out in Inglewood too. Sorry, random stuff. You know, just synapses firing off. But I think that's very interesting. One thing that I feel, and this is maybe, just a question or a challenge to you, how are you going to find other people like on your team, like to do that? Like, how do you find somebody who's passionate about doing what you do? Or how will you scale what you're going to do?
The biggest problem I have with that is it's not going to be a problem to find them. It's going to be a problem to allow myself to allow them to be great without giving my constant input of what I would do. And seeing Tony Mack do that, I was like, seeing him do that, realized he's moving from my number 3 to my number 2, and I don't like it. I got to go harder. But I'm also proud of him. I'm like, oh, he's doing the things that I need to be doing that I'm not doing yet. And he's giving me the books to do it. So he's giving me the resources to be as good as he is. So to me, I'm like, he's moving into my number 2.
Right.
And you know what? He earned it. So I'm just going to spend as much time as Tony. I'm going to try to spend as much time as Tony, shadow him, learn from him.
That's what I was going to say.
And we're in different industries, but I want to watch the way he treats his team and the freedom he gives his team. I even struggle with having a business coach, if I can be transparent. I taught myself how to box because I don't trust anyone else's opinion.
Right.
I couldn't trust my parents to make decisions, so I always made my own decision myself. And then I got into boxing and I got as successful as I did by myself. And then I started to meet coaches and they started giving me advice. I'm like, I'm not taking your advice. I'm doing everything my own way. And I've taken that attitude with me into business and I've gotten successful. I've built a pretty good business for myself, but I can't get to the next level knowing what I know. And it sucks.
Yeah, man. Well, that's the thing about learning. You have to admit you don't know what you need to know. And you got to tell somebody, I don't know the answer. I don't know what to do. I'm self-taught. I think of the guy in The Wedding Singer, Steve Buscemi, when he gets drunk. Self-taught, no lessons, best guitar player in the world. It's something that really, really rocks you to your core as well, especially if you grow up being really good at learning things yourself. And you're in this space where you feel like you're a fish out of water when it comes to letting people on your team make the right decisions. And, just curious about so your definition of humility, right? We talked about being humble and having humility. How do you define humility in that sense? Like where you need to learn or like you're a student, So what's that transition? Yeah.
I think it's important to define humility. And the definition of humility is having or showing a low or modest estimate of one's own importance. I'll say that again. Having or showing a low estimate of one's own importance. If you don't think that sounds right, look it up. Look at all the definitions. You find me a good one and get back to me. Now, when you read the definition, would you wish any of those on your children?
No.
Then why would you wish it on yourself?
I wouldn't.
So, and you you said something about,
I said,
you're humble. What was it?
I'm so glad you're coming on my humble podcast. And do you remember what you said?
Yeah, you let them know.
You said, okay, keep reading the book. Because I talk about that later on. I can't wait to come on your badass podcast.
Yeah. Screw being humble, man.
And what I do 2 days later, I texted you. I said, yep, you got me.
Yeah.
You got me.
And but we've been conditioned to be humble. We live in a Christian nation. I respect everyone's beliefs. But the concept of being humble is to be small and insignificant. If you look up the word, the reason why humility and humiliate sound like the same word, it's the same Latin root word, humble, for humility, which is lowly. You can't expect your daughter to reach for the stars if she's lowly, because she won't believe that she's capable, and self-belief is everything. So we've been beaten down by society to say, be humble, don't celebrate your wins, don't be too excited. So if you're killing it in life and you're killing in life and then you run into someone who's not, what do? We humble ourselves down to where they are. So that means we have to be at the lowest level to the lowest person in the room. That's not how I want to live. If I walk into a room and you're not doing as well as I am, I'm going to pick you up before I lower myself down.
I remember being in football. We had a guy named Dean, rest in peace. He died in Operation Iraqi Freedom. The way we would have expected Dean to die too. I mean, his group got away. He faced the threat. He hit so hard on the field. He was a linebacker in football in high school. And I remember the coach saying, all you guys who are crying about how hard Dean hits you and your ribs are bruised and all that, you need to start hitting like he hits. I am not going to ask him to make himself small for you guys.
Yeah. And here's and another thing about that.
Come up to his level, right?
Come up to his level. So when you train with Dean, when you look at Dean, Dean's not special. So the reason that the way I come to everything is, let's say that you built a $10 million business. No offense, but you're not special. There's nothing that you can do that I can't. So I see you, I admire you because you did the work, but I can do it too. I'm not going to be humble like, oh no, you did something I can't. No, I can do it too. You did it. What makes you special? I'm special. So even in boxing, I'm very conscious about the people I idolize because I want to see that everyone is human. I'm human too. So I don't see someone, because when someone does something, I don't ever get jealous or envy, or I'm just like, oh, cool. It's possible.
Yeah. The evidence exists.
The evidence exists.
Yep.
But some people will see, like, so boxers, I see them do it all the time. They get to nationals and like, oh man, that's Rasheed Warren, man. He won nationals last year, man. He's great. He's in your weight class. Are you going to think about him like that when you're fighting him? No, you have to say, oh, that's Rasheed Warren. He won some things. I'm going to win more than him. He put in work. I'm going to put in more work. And then when you fight him, you can't idolize him. He ain't special because he going to beat your ass.
Well, that's the thing too. That's like life too, right? Like, in a boxing match, if they're weak on their right side, you're going to hit them. Yeah. You're going to hit, those punches are going to be coming on their right side.
Yeah.
If you're in a street fight and they're wearing glasses, you're going to punch them in the glasses.
Yeah. Oh,
if they're limping, you're going to kick them in the leg.
Exactly.
It sounds gangster, but
it's life.
Life.
And we forget that life because we don't have bears and tigers outside. We forget that this is still nature. Our nature just looks like capitalism. And go ahead and don't pay your taxes.
Yeah.
You'll realize how nature works. No one cares about your feelings.
First you get a letter, then you get a call, then violent men are going to show up at your door.
And take all of your stuff.
Take your things.
And that's our new nature. And we have to look at it as it's very competitive. I mean, capitalism is competition. But the thing is, there's so many people competing that you don't have to compete with the people around you. You can build with the people around you. And that's a different way to look at it. So I like my Tony Mack, my number 3 moving to number 2. Regardless of which number he's, I'm going to be around him.
Yeah. You know, when I hear you talk about that too, like the way I'm kind of summing it up in my mind to get your understanding is, don't make humility a virtue.
Yes.
That is not the end state. The fact that you said, like, if I see someone that's not as good as me or in a spot, I'm going to, in so many words, I'm going to offer out my hand. Like, come up here. I want you to see what's possible for yourself. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't know if people because when I read your book or I see you in the ring and you do the little dance thing, and you're having fun, I go, man, that looks like a guy like I would love to hang out with.
Thanks, man.
I'd love to talk to somebody like that because they're not so stone-faced serious, or like they're not making themselves unapproachable. They're like, guys, it's really fun doing this. You should jump in the water too.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something that's so approachable about you and what you do. And, maybe that's the thing too. Like, I just want people to see that people that are really good at stuff are like that, dedicated themselves, just like these people could get if they dedicated themselves. Like, I think Michael Phelps, right? He's like the best swimmer in the world, right? I remember a buddy was telling his son, he's like, you know why he's the best? Because he stares at the bottom of a pool hours every day, just swimming. So that's why he's the best at that thing. You do your 10,000 hours, you do that. You could be the best at that too. Yeah. The question is, do you want to be the best swimmer, or do you want to be like the best, or do
you want to just be average? Because average isn't hard. It's actually just normal. Like, the average person is average. And if you just put a little more effort than they are, like, and with that 1%, just a little bit of effort, 1% more effort than the people around you. And in 3 years, you'll see where you are. Or you could not do that and then look at people who are growing and excelling and say, lucky them. I'm so lucky all the time. Oh man, you won all those national championships. Man, you're so lucky.
What was your morning affirmation a few days ago? You said, I find the harder I dedicate myself, the luckier I am. Or you said it was something like that.
That sort. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it was like, I find my luck because I create it.
Yeah. And so another thing I do is the morning affirmations. So I'm not big on social media, and I was told I need to post on social media because it's a part of my business or whatever. But I don't like looking at people's stuff. I don't, because I might run into something I don't want to see. So I started to do, I would post a morning affirmation on Twitter and then share it on Instagram. And every morning I wake up, I think of a purpose for the day, whatever affirmation I want for the day. And I think of them every morning. And sometimes I can't think of one right away. And sometimes at 3 p.m. I post my morning affirmation.
I've seen that.
Whenever it hits me. And the thing is, it's conscious, it's intentional. And when it's in there, I'm like, I might hear song lyric or something. I'm like, oh, that relates to me. And I'll reword in a different way that means more to me. And again, like the rappers that I listen to to Coda the Friend. He raps about green tea, stretching, and love.
Coda the Friend.
Kota.
We'll tag all these folks in the notes. Yeah.
Another one is La Russell. Now, I spoke about Joe Button in the book because Joe Button was big on being an independent artist. Right. He had signed a contract and he explained, you sell an album for $17, but you only make like 0.3 cents a copy. So you sell 1 million copies and you only make $300,000. So you have to make your money off touring. And he realized that he was being taken advantage of. And he says if he had another choice, he would have gone independent. And he talked about how important it is for independence. That rang true to me. And the reason why I didn't turn pro was you can't be an independent boxer. People tell you who to fight. People tell you what weight to fight. People tell you when you're going to fight until you get to the level where you're Mayweather, which is very difficult. And I was like, oh, I'm not taking that route. So La Russell, he's a rapper who he released 31 albums in like the last 3 years. I mean, this dude nonstop. He's putting out songs. He drops an album like every month.
Jeez.
And quality albums. And
that's like more frequent than Tech Nine, who drops.
Tech Nine, and that's another one. People sleep on him, who's independent. But he's making more money but you have to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
So La Russell, he puts out albums and pay what you want. You can buy his merch. You pay what you want. There's no suggested price. So you can go buy his album for $1. Some people, and he shows what people pay. Some people pay $1 for it. Someone had bought one of his albums for $10,000. And he says, he's like, it evens out. And when he takes that approach, and I respect him, I love him for it because he's talking about it and he's showing that you can be independent if you believe in yourself. But he does talk about how long it takes. And so I released my book. I have a big enough name to where, not famous or anything, but I could have got a publisher to publish my book and pay me $100,000 signing bonus, whatever, to write the book, which I'll eventually have to pay back because that's how it works.
Yep.
Or I can release the book myself and I sell it for 17. I get most of that. So, but it's going to take me longer to find success through that book because I don't have a publishing company, but I did it myself.
And you buy it from your site, you get an autograph copy.
You buy from the site, you get an autograph copy.
And all your other stuff's there too, like your merch, your hoodie, your shirts. That is very real. And you know, that advanced thing, and I can attest too, because I still get our royalty statements from the label from my band, and yeah, it's 0.01 cent for some plays, you know. And I think Macklemore was one of those guys. I think early on he was like, I'm going to release everything on my own myself, because
I love that. That's the artist I support, because I don't want to support the label. I want to support artists. And I bought 3 of La Russell's albums. I never listen to them because I stream on Spotify, but I go out of my way to purchase it. I don't even know where it goes. They email it. I don't know what to do with it, but I wanted to support because I love that. I love independence. I love people who bet on themselves. And if you're not going to bet on you, who else is going to?
I'm just so blown away by so much that we've talked about, man. What I guess, well, let me ask you this. So you wrote the book. What's next as far as, you know, writing? So this is 12 rounds, right? 12 chapters, 12 rounds. What have you learned from writing this and the response so far? And what do you think might be next, I guess?
So I wrote this book in 20 weeks. Because I took some time off from speaking. I'm always traveling. I just knocked it out. I released it earlier than people would expect me to have released it. Because if a normal person would have written that book there are a lot of things that could be changed and made better.
Oh, like through the editing process.
The editing process. And even the concept of the book, or I would make some changes. But the thing is, you don't ever learn until you complete the task. So the second I released that book, I just saw a bunch of things. I'm like, okay, my next book, I'm going to make there's some things I'm going to do differently. But you have to have version 1 done before you can get version 2 to be better. So I don't care about perfection. I think my lack of perfection is what makes me perfect. Because I just released the book, and now I'm like, okay, there's so many changes I would make. So if I write another book, and I likely will, there are some different approaches I would take. This book, I wanted it to be, acceptable in school, because of course I wish someone would have written that book for me. I was a terrible student, and every 5 weeks we got a progress report or a report card reminding me I was stupid, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't smarter as the other kids. And I thought how well you do in school is a reflection of who you're going to become when you become an adult. And I realized it ain't got shit to do with that. So when I talked about my dad, like wearing the white shoes, 1 + 2 = 3, my dad ran the construction company. He would go to Home Depot, he'd pick up workers, and he would just facilitate everything. He didn't know how to use any of the tools. He didn't know how to do the job. He was just the boss. And I learned you can either be the $100 laborer, or you can develop a skill and be the guy who floats the concrete. He got paid more than 4 times more than the $100 worker. He got paid $450 a day. So you can be a $100 worker with no skills, or you can be the $450 worker who learned the skill, got a degree, got a certification, or you could be the guy that hires them. And I was like, since I saw my dad do that, because my dad's dumb. Like, I'm like, it's like, my dad's dumb, and he is in charge of everything. He's so dumb, he's willing to take the risk. And that's what he taught me.
Brother.
Successful, smart people rarely become successful because they statistically figure out if they're able to do it. And if it's not likely, they won't attempt it. And I think so many people sell themselves short because they're afraid to be disillusional. They're afraid to set a goal so big that they set goals small and they never reach their potential.
I mean, just to see what would happen. You know, that's the thing, is like everything's a science experiment, or in many cases that you've written about, a math equation. And the answer is going to inform your next step. You talked about that, about the difference between intelligence and education, you know, conventional approaches. And I see that too. Like when you get to go to a school, like what are some of the things that you're talking to these folks about? Cause like you're talking to people like they just came out of like language arts or math class, right? Like how do you approach that?
So I explain goals in a way that students would get it. Like I talked about the lighthouse. So like I set goals, like you're in the ocean, you're in a boat, and you're in a ship, and you see a lighthouse. That's your goal. So you go towards that direction. You don't know any details about this lighthouse. You just see the light and you go in a direction. You don't need much. You just go in that direction. It's not that hard. And the closer you get to that lighthouse, which is your goal, you'll start to see shades and colors. You might see a door. And the closer you move towards that goal, the more details you're going to see about that goal. Now, when you started that journey, what you imagine that lighthouse looking like is probably a lot different than when you first started. When I wrote that goal in 2008 that I wanted to have my own TV show and be a good role model, TV shows were relevant. As I got closer to the lighthouse, I was like, oh, no one wants a TV show. I want to be a social media influencer, or have a large following, or become a speaker. But I moved towards that goal. So I talk to students about, everyone kind of knows what they want to do. They just don't know exactly what it looks like. Move towards that thing. I also talk about the level of setting goals. So I have like a goal setting tree that I show students, and
there's an image of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the image I show students. And it's like, you can choose any fruit from this tree. Why not choose the very top one? Go for the biggest goal possible. Because if you miss the top one, you still have an option at all the other ones on the way down.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't avoid failure. Like failure is a part of the process, but most people don't believe in themselves. So if they fail, they're going to believe that they're a failure. I fail and I think there's something wrong with the process, not wrong with me. I got to change the process. I got to change the way I did it. But it's like, that's the wholeheartedly believing in yourself. And some people are afraid to believe in themselves because it makes other people uncomfortable. You can't care.
Yeah, man. Was there anything that we talked about or things that you're thinking about now that you wanted to make sure you tell the audience or get out there, just in the vein of this discussion?
Yeah. I would say don't set your goals based off what other people are capable of doing. Yeah. Most people play it safe. And I might have written in the book, but I've always said this in 2012, when I didn't make the Olympic team, the Kansas City Star interviewed me, and I think it was Sam Mellinger, and we're at a Panera Bread, and
sorry, I don't mean to bust up. I love hearing you set the stage. Yeah. Okay, so
we're at a Panera Bread
with the Kansas City Star, man,
and like I ended up not going to the Olympics, and I was like, I'm just going to keep it real with him, and I was like, I don't know what he's going to print, but I'm going to tell him everything, and I basically explained that and he put a lot of it in there. I basically explained that I will set a goal. I will swing for the fences, and I much rather strike out and be pissed off in the dugout than to settle for a grounder at one, which that could be if some people have a job and they love it, but most people I know despise their job. Life is time. You can't get more of it. What you do with your time is who you are. I wanted to always do something that I wanted to do with my time. So I didn't want to be I didn't want to work in a cubicle. I definitely don't, no disrespect to anybody in cubicles. I didn't want to work in a cubicle. But if I'm swinging for the fences, I know if I continue to strike out, I'm going to eventually end up in a cubicle. But I would much rather end up working in a cubicle because I swung for the fences than to get a great paying job that I despise. Because either way, I'm going to be unhappy. I might as well be unhappy going for it.
I love that. So what's the best way for folks to engage with you right now? I know you got awesome talks. You got your social media presence. I mean,
you can subscribe to my OnlyFans. No. Business isn't that bad. No, you can follow me on social media at CamFAwesome, LinkedIn on CamFAwesome. I have a unique name, and I'm not famous enough for anyone to try to steal it yet. So I'm pretty much CamFAwesome everywhere.
That's so cool, man.
I'll share something else.
Go ahead.
As captain of the USA national boxing team, I was, as number one boxer in this country, I went to other countries and fought their number one boxers. And as captain, my job would be to find the do's and don'ts about each country and relay the messages to my teammates so we don't look like idiots in other countries. Like you go to Japan, you have to know not to look people directly in their eyes, elders in the eyes, and just cultural differences. And doing this over the course of almost 15 years, I learned a lot about cultural communication. So now I speak about cultural communication in the workplace as a diversity consultant. So I'm a diversity consultant. I'm also a speaker. I do stand-up comedy, so...
Yeah. So what does that look like right now too? Because you're active in the comedy scene too.
So, well, in 2012, when I didn't make it to the Olympics, I realized the whole becoming awesome thing, I did boxing to become this person. I wanted to be a performer. And I realized I won all these nationals. I did all this boxing, but I focused so much on boxing. I wasn't doing any performing. So in 2012, I realized, I didn't need to become a boxer to become a comedian. I need to just go to open mics. So I started going to open mics, and I took the same philosophy I did with boxing. So if you have, let's say you have 100 boxing matches, and I have 3 boxing matches, and we fight, who do you think's supposed to win?
The one with 100.
Exactly, because the more you do something, the better you become. That's as simple as it is.
Right.
So when I started doing stand-up, I was like, I'm terrible. I cursed a lot. I said inappropriate things. I was just looking for shock humor. I was just saying as many bad words as I can to get a reaction out of an audience. I didn't understand the structure of a joke. But I realized the more time I spent on stage, the better I became. So I decided I was going to put as much dedication into comedy as I did into boxing. And if I go to a city to fight, I reach out to comedy clubs because they don't care how funny you are. They care how many tickets you can sell. So you got to learn the system. And whatever you're doing, learn the system and learn how you can benefit from it. In boxing, I learned the scoring system. I literally interviewed judges because hey, before I do all this training, what are you looking for?
Love it. I love it.
And man, all of them said, we're looking for clean shots that pop someone's head back. So I said, okay, those are 2 punches. A jab will snap someone's head back, and an uppercut would snap someone's head back. Those are the only 2 punches I focused on.
And you also too, you said they judged based on who looked more tired.
Yeah.
And the person who had more energy. And so if you could,
that's why I constantly dance in the ring, and I looked like I was enjoying myself. I looked like it wasn't bothering me. So I took that same approach to fighting. If you have 100 fights, I have 3. The guy with more fights won. So I knew I wasn't that athletic, but I said after 200 fights, the average boxer has like 30 fights. So after I have 200, all of these fights are going to be easy. And I ended with over 400 fights. And the last 200 was relatively easy. I fought a lot of high-level guys, but anyone normal I would smash because I was that much better than them. So when I got into comedy, I had that same concept. How can I be on stage more than everyone else? Now, first of all, I'm going to have the best price ever. So if I'm going to a city to fight, hey, comedy club, you send me an email, I'll give them a call. Hey, I'd like to perform. I can sell tickets. I'm not famous, but I have boxing fans everywhere, and I'm a novelty at this point. They might not be coming to watch me do comedy. They just want to see a shit show. So I can sell tickets. And every city I would go in, I would sell tickets. I would hit open mics, and I got better and better at comedy. And I started to get paid for it. Not bragging, I made $40. And $40 in a bar tab. And I realized, like, okay, this is not a career yet. I would have to take another direction at this.
Right.
And I would be doing stand-up, doing open mic nights, and no one's paying attention. So when I would go to schools to speak, I would spend the last 5 minutes trying out my jokes. And I realized the students liked the last 5 minutes more than they liked the whole thing.
Oh, that's so cool.
So
man.
I started to create, I basically, right to this day, I do stand-up comedy in schools. All the jokes have morals and messages attached to it. Because if they're laughing, they're listening. If they're listening, they're learning. If they're learning, I'm killing it. So I decided to pursue comedy in more than just in the stand-up realm. And I got into schools, and I did so well in schools. I continued to get invited to do corporate events. And I realized adults are just children with the ability to drive.
Yeah, man.
Everyone likes to be entertained. So I share the same messages in my unique way of thinking, but I add jokes and humor to it to be able to be a performer. So the thing that I wanted to do when I started boxing is, like, I said a TV show, but of course that was my lighthouse. I want to be a performer, and I'm performing all the time. I did a networking event last night. My bag is packed right now in the car. My gas is full. I'm driving to Omaha to do a gig tomorrow. So I'm speaking at middle school in Omaha. Sunday, I'm doing another talk. Tuesday, I'm doing another talk. And Thursday, I'm flying to Portland, Oregon. The next day I'm flying to Baltimore. So, like, I am performing, I'm traveling. What I wanted to do, and I don't even know if I mentioned this in the book, what I've always wanted to do when I thought about boxing, and when I was boxing, I would always listen to stand-up comedy, and I love comedians talking about comedy. And what I want to do is I just wanted to do a comedy show and then hang out in a diner at 2 a.m. with a bunch of comics. Yeah. And I got to do that a bunch of times. And I'm like, that's worth billions of dollars to me. And no one even knows how much I enjoy it. Like, when I don't even have to be saying it. I just want to sit at the diner and everyone's talking, some people drunk, and we're just going like, who killed last night, who bombed. And to me, that's what I wanted. And I think I couldn't have gotten it within 5 years. Like, if there's something that you genuinely want, write that goal down, because nothing is real until you write it down, and work towards it and have that goal. Like, in 8 years, I'm going to be sitting, because whether or not you have that goal, 8 years are going to pass regardless.
That's right.
You might as well be in a different position. So
absolutely. Yeah,
I'm big on that. So I'm grateful to be able to do the things that I want to do and the things that I love.
Well, you have not wasted any of your experiences as well. And that's the thing that I'm noticing too. Like, leaning into the cringe of walking into a comedy club and telling terrible jokes and cursing just because probably out of sheer nervousness.
Oh, yeah.
Screw this, whatever, Yeah. You're doing all these developmental things at the same time. You're up in front of people, which you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You've got a captive audience, which you wanted to do. You're learning how to hone your speech, which you also wanted to do, right? And it's like people, I feel like sometimes they think they've got to like get the certain degree and they got to dress a certain way and they got to play the part to be the thing they want to do, but they just need to go to where the skills that can be developed are happening. And
one of the big things, Nate, my number 2 in Dallas.
Down in Dallas, yeah.
He college dropout. High school dropout, I'm sorry. And he shared with me, I says, what are your thoughts on college? Because he has children. And he says, well, he just had a 16-year-old drop out. His 16-year-old son, he just had a 16-year-old son drop out of school, and he works for his business. And he says, it's not that he doesn't value college. And he said in a great way, because I'm very anti-education system. Because education is remembering there's a K in knife. Intelligence is knowing not to grab it by the handle. You have to memorize education, and there's nothing applicable to it.
Right.
So Nate told me what he does is he hires people. He spends a certain amount of his income every year on coaches, because you can either go to college and learn something, or you can learn something from all these different people who already done what you've already done. And once he said that, and he told me I need to get a coach. No one tells me what to do anything. No one tells me to do. Nate tells me to do something. I'm doing it. And now I have to get a coach, and I have to listen to someone else. And if I'm paying someone, I have to take their advice. So it's definitely going to help me grow.
Man, that's amazing. Cam, it's been so awesome having you here on the show. Thank you so much for coming on KFCBC.
Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate you, man. All right, everybody. We'll give all of Cam's links and socials, all that stuff. We'll tag it all in the end. Thanks so much for listening. We appreciate you.